Now look, listen, I still think that WrestleMania 17 is the best pay-per-view the WWE has ever put on. I mean, it comes down to my age, and it just comes down to the fact that I was a fetus. This was so over the top and so crazy, I flubbing loved it. It's kind of interesting today because if you do keep watching in 2001, after the showcase of the Immortals, everything does go a little bit weird. Mostly because we did try and turn Steve Austin heel, and it didn't work. So with that in mind, I thought we could really get some people riled up today, because here are the 10 best years to be a WWE fan. You know the deal with lists like this. We'll wake up tomorrow and we'll change our mind, but let's enjoy the goodness anyway. Number 10, 2015. Now the 2015 Royal Rumble still raises many people's eyebrows because WWE would just not let the Roman Reigns experiment go. They just wanted to smash you over the head with it. But as it turned out, it got so crazy wazy that when we got to WrestleMania, somebody came up with a terrific idea and it changed everything. Because even today, Seth Rollins' heist of the century is seen as the best cash-in. And look, Seth was talking about this the other day. Technically, he's never main evented a WrestleMania properly, but even if he does, I don't think it will outdo it. It's a moment in time. Outside of this as well, John Cena had decided, oh man, well there's the United States Championship, and even though it's going to put me in the mid-card, I'm going to rehab that thing as best I can. I mean, this mother hubbard was even doing springboard stunners. It's why when all of a sudden both John Cena and Seth Rollins came together for that match at SummerSlam with all the championships on the line, well, it was totally faboo. Had a weird ending, but I still loved it. It was also the year when Kevin Owens, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch got called up to the main roster. And look what they've done ever since. So I tell you, if you want to sit down and watch 12 months of TV, you can do far worse than this. Number 9, 2016. And I suppose WWE used all that to carry on the momentum into the next year too. Now for some reason the powers that be did go, oh, we should do a brand split again. But unlike the most recent one, at least for a little while, actually did feel like a game changer. It really helped SmackDown no end because we moved it to Tuesdays and we just put some proper stars on it, and even the old guard like The Miz all of a sudden felt completely refreshed and he was having decent feuds with everyone. Usos and Natalya also took advantage of the situation, and you had the co-GMs of Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan, and that doesn't sound like it should work. But it did. And the main reason it brought joy is that Bryan was clearly still so devastated that he wasn't able to wrestle anymore. He didn't give a damn, and he would just go out of his way to entertain himself. So surprise, surprise, all of a sudden we were entertained. Like, go and watch some episodes of Talking Smack from this period. They rule. Over on Raw as well, we had that excellent feud between Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks, and yes, this is when Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho got together. Still one of the best pairings ever. I mean it. You do also have to give props to Braun Strowman in 2016 because that dude had massively hit his peak. Should we have made him the world champion? Yes, we probably should. Number 8, 1992. Right, let us go all the way back in time now, because 92 was the best. Still boasting the best Royal Rumble ever even today, Ric Flair was able to go all the way from the start to the finish and become the WWF champion. And don't get this lost in your mind, it was like crazy fantasy booking. Here you had the face of the NWA and WCW, and now he was World Wrestling Federation champion. You had to slap yourself. Interestingly, the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan were kind of absent for a lot of 1992, but that just did allow guys like Ric Flair and the Macho Man Randy Savage to continue climbing that ladder. Savage would win the world title in the second half of that year, which was just brilliant, and you had that amazing stuff between Bret Hart and Roddy Piper, which peaked at WrestleMania. I mean, everybody just wanted to have good matches. Shawn Michaels was also embracing his role as a singles star, and you could just feel the changing of the guard here, because seriously, if the 1980s were all pomp and circumstance, well, the early 90s, it was just hard-hitting wrestling. And of course, there are still some fumbles when you do go through the whole thing, but mostly from January to December, it is a couple of thumbs up. 7, 1989. And you know you're doing something right when you have critical and commercial acclaim. That's what the WWF had as they did head into a brand new decade. A huge reason for this too was because of the mega powers imploding. And look, let's compare it to the Bloodline, because that's what everybody wants to do. The real joy of this is that Hulk Hogan played his role perfectly, so did Miss Elizabeth, so did the Macho Man, to the point you could emotionally invest in this. And when they did go head to head, forget about it. They also felt like megastars, which helped, and everything is just so damn bright and colourful, you do get drawn in. And even the tag division was pretty good. Because you had the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, the Brain Busters. Vince McMahon may never have been well into 2-on-2 wrestling, but this became essential. Even the mid-card, you did have the likes of the Warrior, Ted DiBiase, and Dusty Rhodes. So again, you can sit there and every single match you're like, well, I definitely want to check this out. That's why it's so good. Number 6, 1996. Mick Foley. That's right. Mick flipping Foley. We all forget now that Jim Ross basically had to beg Vince McMahon to hire Mick Foley, but when he did and he came out as Mankind, do not forget he single-handedly rehabbed The Undertaker's career and made the dead man feel more terrifying than ever. But I don't think without this, Mark Calaway would have the longevity he did end up having, and all of 1996 just has such an edge to it. I'm not talking about Adam Copeland. Of course, you also had Stone Cold Steve Austin making waves. This was just a continuous trend of taking WCW talent and going, oh yeah, we know how to use them better. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were also getting super into it with their beef, and while that wasn't great overall, it did make for some fascinating reading, and also Shawn was just having great matches with everyone. Then you had the British Bulldog, Psycho Sid, and Mankind again. You see why I bring up his name. And most people, as soon as you mention this period, would be like, yeah, but business was down. I don't watch television and go, oh man, I can't believe WWF wasn't making a lot of money. The whole point is this. In the mid-90s, they did start planting their seeds for the Attitude Era. And when you do go and watch it now, you could see it with both your eyes. Number 5, 1998. And you could put this one at number 1 if you wanted to, because 1998 solidified the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because his feud with Vince McMahon became so popular, it was basically mainstream entertainment. And unless you witnessed this firsthand, it's so hard to explain to people nowadays. You could walk down the streets, some people were actually just talking about sports entertainment. You also just totally believe that Austin did want to kick this guy's ass, and you had the Monday Night Wars, and even celebrities like Mike Tyson were popping up. Now that was super controversial, but did it make headlines? Yes, it did. D-Generation X also had a huge resurgence under Triple H, and X-Pac made the jump from WCW to WWF, and everybody loved that in 1998. And you had The Rock becoming the biggest heel in the industry. Now I do admit there is way too many swerves throughout this 12 months. That is down to Vince Russo. But there's also a lot of good ones, so it's only fair to say. Number 4, 2005. We mentioned this earlier, but yeah, after that WrestleMania in 2001 and the kind of unofficial ending of the Attitude Era, the WWE didn't really know what direction it wanted to head in. Things kind of got a little bit murky. And I'm not saying it was bad, but I just think it's the cyclical nature of pro wrestling. We'd had our highs, so now we had to have some lows. That botched invasion angle didn't help, but by the time we got to 2005, I think everybody finally got wise to it and went, wait a minute, we got Batista and John Cena, we should do something with them. Because both guys got over huge at this year's WrestleMania, with them both elevating themselves to the top of the card. And don't forget, a few months after this, we got ECW One Night Stand. The timing of that was absolutely perfect too, because it felt like the rogue element that WWE had been missing. The buzz of that show also transferred to Raw and SmackDown, so finally, after a long old while, you could sit down and watch both those shows and be like, I don't know what's going to happen. Now, of course, if you were a long-term fan, you were going to do this anyway because you watched regardless. But there was just a spark here. By the end of the year, everything felt so much better. Number 3, 1997. Although it was not as good as 1997, which is some of the best 12 months of wrestling any company has ever produced. Now, the amazing stat is that the WWF didn't beat WCW once during this time, but what Vince McMahon did do is just put the building blocks in place for what we know was right around the corner. It's just so compelling to watch. Bret Hart was just in the form of his life, both in the ring and on the microphone. And of course, while you had Shawn Michaels pissing everybody off, you could not argue what he was doing in the ring. That guy was Fabu. As we've already talked about as well, it was around here when everybody realized that Stone Cold Steve Austin was the guy. And it's just so exciting to see, even in 2023, because now we know what the future holds. There's also such a reality to the 1997 product that you can't totally buy into it. And everybody was just having good matches with everybody else. That's why we need to sing the praises of the wrestlers who were involved at this time. Without it, who the flub knows where we'd be now. Number 2, 1987. Now, do not forget this was so gargantuan, we are still muttering about it today. Nostalgia remains strong, of course, but when you do go through 1987, you cannot get away from WrestleMania 3, when Hulk Hogan finally grabbed Andre the Giant and slammed him right into hell. Whatever exaggeration he wants to make up today. I mean, many of your favorite superstars from right now decided to take on this career after watching this, and seeing Hulkamania at its pomp well, it is kind of incredible. I mean, it is just people breaking down over a dude with no hair and a moustache. That's why you shouldn't break things down to their very core without context. Let's not pretend that the World Wrestling Federation didn't ride this for many years to come as well, because they did do. And again, as soon as Hulk comes out on any single show, individuals just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's Hogan. And that does transcend everything. It was something else. Number 1, 2000. Has there ever been a better year in WWE? Well, it's close, but even still, 2000s is amazing. Because not only has the mainstream once again bought into sports entertainment, but everybody has a feud, everybody has a purpose, every match is pretty damn fun, and there is just so many people going to the arenas. It also never lets up throughout the calendar year, and just look at this damn roster. Because there's Triple H, there's The Rock, there's Mick Foley, there's Edge and Christian, there's the Hardy Boys, there's Chris Jericho, there's Kurt Angle, and so many more. Well, we could talk about this for days. They all wanted to make their mark, which they did do, and also in 2000, you don't get a lot of Stone Cold Steve Austin, because he was on the sideline sorting out his injuries. Let's not pretend that his presence wouldn't have made this even higher too, but what it did do is rally the troops, which is why I think a lot of people did raise their game. Admittedly, towards the end of the year, it does crash a little bit, but that's always been the way with WWE. You go crazy for WrestleMania, and then it just kind of diminishes a little bit. It really is top draw pro wrestling though, and proves why they were the last company standing, which also ties into Secret Entry 2023. That's right, I want to put over the current offering mainly for the same reason. Because the Bloodline stuff has been all time. You have super duper stars like Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, and you have people that are just on the cusp that we're all excited about, such as LA Knight. WWE are also making their events bigger and bigger, because WrestleMania does feel like the Super Bowl, whereas SummerSlam, as of me talking, is about to do over 50,000 people. I mean, that's totally nuts. Figures are also through the roof as wrestling fans buy merchandise in their droves. And of course, we can't put this in the list proper because we're only 6 months through. But if they continue this on and we get to December, well, something's going to have to move, because right now, 2023 is absolutely kicking ass. Now, of course, there's going to be a bunch of things I have forgotten about, which is why you need to drop them into the comments below and click the video on the screen, because you're going to have a good old time. You can also like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Check out whatculture.com to keep up to date with the wrestling news. And of course, come say hey on social media. What Culture WWE, Simon316. We're desperate to wave back at you. Desperate's not the right word, but I've said it now. My name is also Simon from What Culture. I appreciate you joining me as always. Make sure you have a terrific day. That's what life is all about. See you soon.